77 WABC.
1, 2, 3.
Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday. The NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC, New York. Cumulus Station. This is Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Sid Rosenberg. The stories, the stats, the edge.
That's going to do it. And Clemson defeats Alabama for the national championship. Congratulations to Coach Dabo Swinney and his Tigers. But we'll see you again. Same time next year.
The moments.
4th and goal at the Chicago 2. An avalanche of noise descending down on Foles in the gun. 3-man rush. Rolls out of the pocket. Sidearm throw. Caught. Goal line. Touchdown Golden Tate. Got inside the hash mark and Philadelphia has scored.
Every Sunday.
They do the little raise up salute on the offensive line like Cowboys of old. Dak Prescott takes a knee, and for just the third time since 1996, the Dallas Cowboys are winners in the NFL playoffs.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda on 77 WABC.
As the season goes on for the Colts, the clock is at 2, it's at 1, and it is over. The Indianapolis Colts have come to Houston and beat the Houston Texans 21-7 to win the wild card game.
Now, Sid Rosenberg. Exhaust blackens the air. It's pulling up to Madison Square Garden. The wheels muddy. The seats ripped. The toilet overflowing.
What are you doing? Get on the bus!
The boys are hitting the road to bring the excitement of the big game right to you. It's the Bernie and Sid in the morning bus to the big game in Atlanta.
Backpedaling into the end zone! Touchdown!
The big game in Atlanta. That's so lame. It's the Super Bowl. That's what it is. I told these guys, you know, if we say the Super Bowl in a piece like that, which was put together brilliantly by Chris Libertini, what I guess Chad and Craig and all these guys don't get is, and Matt Dahl, the NFL is not going to sue us. You know why the NFL is not going to sue us? Because outside of me, they have no idea we exist. If WFAN does something like that, they're going to get sued. Here's what would happen with our station. We would get a letter from Greg Aiello warning us, a cease and desist. Next time you talk about the big game, don't call it the Super Bowl. And my point is, that would be the greatest thing to ever happen to this station. If the NFL actually took notice of us and sent us a letter, that's a win. But my bosses, who I love dearly, I would never knock them, they run scared. So they call it the big game. What the F is the big game? What big game? There's a big game today. There's a big game in college basketball today. There's a big game in the NBA. To what big game? It's the freaking Super Bowl. That's where we're going to be. By the way, Rabbi Pasek, nice to meet you today. You're a wonderful guy. You got a great show. And this show is even better with the Rabbi on before me each and every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Make sure you listen now to a full morning of great broadcasts here on WABC, the Rabbi into this Sid Sports Sunday. What a great show. We are going to the Super Bowl. That was announced on the Bernie and Sid in the morning show yesterday. The best morning show, not just in New York City, but across the nation. And we did announce that we will do 3 shows from Atlanta, the site of the big game, Super Bowl 53. We'll do a Bernie and Sid show on Thursday and Friday, and this show, Sid Sports Sunday, on the weekend. So we will bring you the best guests leading up to the big one. And 2 more teams yesterday punched their tickets at one step closer, right? Now we know the Kansas City Chiefs are 1 home win away from going back to the Super Bowl. I think it's been since Len Dawson and Super Bowl 4. And the Los Angeles Rams now just 1 win away from representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. So we had those 2 games yesterday, 2 games coming up today, 1 o'clock this afternoon from Foxborough, the Chargers and Patriots. And here's why the Chargers are going to win. Because they've showed this stat 1,000 times the last 2 days. Tom Brady and Phil Rivers have gone head-to-head 7 times. And guess how many times the Chargers have won? 0. In those games, Rivers has more interceptions than touchdowns. Brady, nearly 2-1 touchdowns to picks. So all these numbers are apocalyptic for the Chargers. So what that tells you is they're going to win, right? I mean, I don't know. You want to bet against the Patriots up in Foxborough, Belichick and Brady, but the Chargers are now the hottest team in these NFL playoffs when you consider the Colts, who lost like once in 11 weeks, got taken to the woodshed yesterday by Kansas City. So on this show today, we're going to talk to Charlie Casserly. Folks, Charlie Casserly spent 23 years as either the assistant or the GM of the Washington Redskins, a team that won 3 Super Bowls when he was there. He was an assistant to Bobby Beathard, had those great Joe Gibbs teams and Joe Theismann and Doug Williams and all those guys. Charlie went on to be the GM of the Houston Texans, and a few years ago actually consulted with the Jets when they hired Mike McCagnon and Todd Bowles. So Charlie Casserly will be here today. Then later on this hour, we're going to talk some baseball. A couple of huge moves by both the Mets and the Yankees this week, both getting big-time infielders. Mets getting Jed Lowry, who had 23 homers and knocked in 99 runs for the A's last year. So he comes to the Mets, and DJ LeMahieu comes to the Yankees, which means that Manny Machado is not. In fact, I think the favorite right now is the White Sox to land Manny Machado, but we'll see. We're going to talk to a guy that covered the Yankees for 17 years for the New York Daily News, and is now one of the go-to guys at MLB Network, our good buddy Mark Feinsand. He's on today. As if that's not enough, coming up next hour, got my boy stopping by, the genius behind NJ Diet, the only plan that you will lose 20 to 50 pounds in only 40 days. I promise you that. Diehard Eagle fan, talking some Philly sports, my man Dr. Arthur Turovitz. But how about this? The Super Bowl hero, that epic New York football giant win over the Buffalo Bills in Super Bowl 25. The MVP of that game was not Jeff Hostetler. It was not the Giant defense. It was O.J. Anderson, over 100 yards, and more importantly, thanks to a great scheme by Bill Parcells, O.J. running the football, kept the ball away from Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, and Andre Reed. The Super Bowl MVP himself, O.J. Anderson, on this show today. Plus, as if that's not enough, Danny Bianculo with the pick. So between now and 11 a.m., if you're listening to anything else, and you can't hear me if you are, so stupid of me to say that. Stupid. But if you are, you're a jackass. Because we got the best sports show in New York City, and this show today especially is a great one. Again, we're getting pumped up because 2 games today. Next weekend, you get just 2 games for the weekend, championship weekend. Right, so the AFC Kansas City will host the winner of today's game, either the Patriots or the Chargers. And then the Los Angeles Rams, if the Eagles win today, they'll host the Eagles. If the Saints win today, the Rams travel to New Orleans because the Saints are the 1 seed. Those are your 2 games next week, just 2. 2 weeks from today, no football. 3 weeks from today, Super Bowl 53. 3 weeks and 1 day from today, men all over the country start jumping out of buildings because there's no football, which I think is idiotic. I love basketball, I love hockey, and I'm really excited about baseball, but you know, football is, for some people, for some guys, it's all they care about. They watch the combine. They watch kids jump up and down and run races, basically relay races in Indianapolis in shorts and T-shirts. And it gets big ratings on the NFL Network. And I got to think these people are morons. I love the Giants. I love football, but give me a break. You know, don't forget I worked in Miami all those years. That's all they care about in the South is football. College football, NFL. Yeah, when LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Shaquille O'Neal show up, that becomes exciting. But a lot of this country, it's football Friday night, football Saturday, football Sunday, and when it's over, it's like crack cocaine. Like, what am I going to do now? And we are coming very dangerously to that point. Anyway, game 1 yesterday, a quick recap here. The Chiefs, of course, we know the deal. They have not won a playoff game at home since 1994. They blew a 28-point lead against Manning and the Colts in a playoff game about 5 years ago. An 18-point lead against the Tennessee Titans in the playoffs also a few years ago. And they have been snake bit. Yeah, you can go back to the days of, like I said, Len Dawson and Hank Stram, those early Super Bowls. But it's been a long time with some very good football teams between Marty Schottenheimer and Andy Reid that never had playoff success. And the Colts came in as the hottest team in the National Football League. Andrew Luck, right? The country loving Andrew Luck. And the Colts are going to win. The Colts are going to win. I know they're getting points in this game, but, Pat Mahomes is a first-year starter. Andy Reid can't win the big one. He went to one Super Bowl with the Eagles, and they lost to New England. The Chiefs can't win a playoff game at home. The Colts are going to win. And then this happened, like one of these Kansas City touchdowns from yesterday.
First and goal to the 10-yard line. Damian Williams looking for space, cuts it back, still on his feet, into the end zone. Touchdown, Kansas City.
This one wasn't close, bottom line. Colts got a touchdown on special teams. They blocked a punt to score in the second quarter. At that point, they were already down 17-0. They played nearly the whole first half without a first down. Forget about a point. Even Chris Collinsworth and Al Michaels were like, you got to be kidding me. Not one first down? Andrew Luck and Mack and T.Y. Hilton, these guys are on fire. Andrew Luck, by the way, finished the day a very uninspiring 19 of 36, 203 yards and one interception. The Colts did finally score one offensive touchdown in, as Marv Albert says, garbage time with about 6 minutes left. But this was all Kansas City. 31-13, a very good game for Pat Mahomes. Did what he had to do, 27 of 41, 278 yards. The Chiefs ran the football very well. Look, when they had to cut Hunt a couple of weeks ago, Kareem Hunt, after the domestic violence, that ugly video from the hotel in Ohio, people were like, oh, my God, what are they going to do, leading rusher? Well, Damian Williams has stepped in. All Williams did yesterday, 129 yards and a touchdown. He's already received a contract extension from Kansas City. They haven't missed a beat. And they win this one easily, 31-13. Here is Andrew Luck after the game.
We could not establish a rhythm, and that hurt. It really hurt. It's tough sledding. And those 3 and outs, they put our defense in a bad situation. We needed to answer some of those early drives. And certainly not the start we wanted, and not the middle we wanted, not the finish we wanted.
Here's the young quarterback, fresh off his 50-touchdown season, Pat Mahomes, after the Kansas City win.
It was a great win. The defense stepped up big, played great all game long. Offense, we started fast, had a kind of a dry spell, but we finished it off in the end. So it's a great team win. We get the opportunity to play here again next week, so we're excited for that opportunity.
Mahomes played well, Williams played well, but it really was about the defense. Now, in Kansas City, at home at Arrowhead, the Kansas City defense is actually decent, actually pretty good. In fact, the last home game, they did not allow a defensive touchdown. So as long as they're playing defense in Kansas City, they're actually pretty good, and that's where they won the game yet. I know they scored 31 points, and again, Mahomes and Williams combined for about 400 yards. But the game was won early on the defensive side of the football, as you'll hear now from Kansas City's head coach, Andy Reid.
Listen, it was a great all-around effort. I thought our defense stepped up and just did a heck of a job against what I think is a good offense, a great quarterback, receivers, tight ends, a running back that's been on fire. So I thought they did a very nice job.
So there it is. So the Chiefs now move on. They're the 1 seed, and they will host the winner of today's Chargers-Patriots game at Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City next week. Now, the later game, another, upstart, exciting underdog. A lot of folks out there, the Sharps, thought all 4 underdogs could win this weekend. Colts and Cowboys yesterday, that didn't go well. And the Chargers and the Eagles today. Dallas got run. We talk about Kansas City was able to run the football and played great defense. Well, the Rams ran the football down the Cowboys' throat, which no one could have predicted. Dallas is a top 5 rush defense in the NFL, and they could not stop the Rams. Todd Gurley, 16 carries, 115 yards, and he broke a 35-yard touchdown. The former Denver Bronco, C.J. Anderson, he ate the Cowboys' ass for lunch, 123 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you would have said to me before this game that the L.A. Rams would rush for 273 yards and get 6 yards per carry, I would have said you were nuts. So it didn't matter what Goff did at quarterback. Quite frankly, it didn't matter what Dak Prescott did at quarterback. And he was okay, just okay. They lost the game yesterday because they couldn't stop the run and they couldn't run it, right? If Todd Gurley's the best running back in football, The top 3 running backs in football are probably Gurley with the Rams, Barkley here with the Giants, and Elliott with Dallas. Look at the numbers for Gurley and Anderson yesterday. As for Ezekiel Elliott, 20 carries, 47 yards. Just over 2 yards a carry. He never played a role. And, in fact, they stuffed him more than once on a 4th and short. He actually hurt Dallas last night. Now, there was almost a backdoor cover. Cowboys get a touchdown, 2-point conversion. They were getting 7.5 to cut it to 8. And they maybe could have gotten the football back just over 2 minutes to go. Cowboys have 3 timeouts. They got to stop the Rams, plus a 2-minute warning. So 4 clock stoppages. They got to stop the Rams. You're down 8. You get the ball back, and who knows? They couldn't stop them. Jonathan Gopp on 3rd down took it himself around the left side. Rams get a 1st down, and the football game is over. So the Dallas Cowboys season is over, and it didn't take very long for former Dallas Cowboy players like Hall of Famer Terrell Owens to go nuts on Jason Garrett. You know, Jason Garrett is not going to get fired. Dallas won a playoff game this year, something they ordinarily do. They won the NFC East, came back after a rough start. Obviously, the Amari Cooper trade with the Raiders was the catalyst for the Cowboys' second-half success. They're not firing Jason. Plus, for some reason, Jerry Jones loves him. But here's T.O., hey, real Jerry Jones. About time for a coaching change, don't you think? 2 playoff wins in 10 years. Garrett's not the answer and never will be. Way to compete, guys. Hashtag real talk from T.O. So there you have it. So Dallas loses. The Rams are the 2 seed. They look great defensively. They ran the ball great with Gurley and Anderson. Gopp did what he had to do when they move on, and they will either host the Eagles. If the Eagles win today, they're the 6th seed. If the Saints win today, because New Orleans is the 1 seed, the Rams play their next football game on the road in New Orleans. Phones are wide open today, 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. Again, lots of great guests today. Mark Feinsand, MLB Network, Charlie Casserly, NFL Network, former Giant Super Bowl MVP O.J. Anderson, Danny B making picks, Dr. T talking some Eagles. We are pumped the F up, and we're going to the Super Bowl and coming back right after this.
Breakfast in bed with Sid. A dream come true. Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda every Sunday.
Man, oh man, they can't stop us.
77 WABC.
All right, I was tweeting the picture of me and Rabbi Potasnik, being that he's back on early Sunday mornings. Now he's on before me. That's a great Sunday morning lineup here. The Rev and the Rabbi into Sid Sports Sunday. Again, we are about to be attacked here by great guests all morning long. Great guests. We're going to check in Gunzelman, the very fine executive producer of this program. You all know him from the Imus in the Morning Show and, of course, his stints on Fox News. Very unhealthy. I'm going to describe it as a very unhealthy infatuation that Neil Cavuto has for you. I don't get it. And Judge Napolitano. I can't help but think about Ryan Seacrest and Merv Griffin, but maybe you can tell me, what is this, Gonzi, put your mic on, where did this whole relationship start, this whole craziness?
Well, you know, I think they recognize talent when they see it.
I'm asking you a serious question, douchebag. Why does Cavuto love you like this? What happened?
You know, it's, I think he just...
All right, good enough. So what are we doing here? We have 2 live stringers today. We've got somebody in New England and somebody in New Orleans.
Well, we got our buddy Dakota. He's coming. He's now ready. He's in New England, going to the big game right now. And the next hour we'll go to Josh, our buddy Josh from NOLA.com, and we'll do that next hour. So let's do Patriots this hour.
All right.
New Orleans next hour. Live people that are at the game.
You're in charge, bro.
That's how we roll, baby.
This is your show.
We're the best looking people ever.
Right. You got to stop drinking before you come to work in the morning. I'm begging you. Dakota Randall works for Nesson, and he is, as Gunzi just said, live at Foxborough where later on this afternoon, in about 3.5 hours, Tom Brady and the Patriots, I know Joseph Abboud is listening, looking to do it again against Phil Rivers and the Los Angeles Chargers. Good morning, Dakota.
Yeah, good morning, Sid. I'm here at a freezing Gillette Stadium where the Patriots will host the Chargers. I'll tell you, it's really cold right now, and it's not supposed to get any better. Game time temperatures are expected to be in the teens. Now, the Patriots are favored in this game, but if you take out history, where it's being played, and the weather, it's hard to make a case for taking New England. Running game, edge Chargers. Receivers, Chargers. Quarterback, this season, Chargers. Defense, Chargers. Special teams may be the only area where the Patriots have an edge over L.A., and if New England's going to make it to the AFC title game on the strength of special teams, well, God bless them. But in all seriousness, this game is all about the quarterbacks. Philip Rivers has enough weapons to carve up the Patriots and is playing some of the best football of his life. Best hope for New England is to put pressure on Rivers and force him into making mistakes, something he's prone to doing. And as for Brady, he's looking like a 41-year-old quarterback and is dealing with his worst supporting cast in years. If the Chargers can get pressure with Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, it could be a long day for Brady. But all that being said, this is Brady and Belichick at home in the cold and in the playoffs. We've seen this act before.
Yes, we have.
This game is 4-point home favorites. And you get it for Sid Sports Sunday. I'm Dakota Randall. Back to you in the studio.
All right, stick around, Dakota. You're right. Brady beats Rivers every time, 7 for 7. And the numbers for Brady are very, very good. They're lousy for Rivers. Melvin Gordon, the big-time running back for the Chargers, he's good to go?
Yep, he's good to go. He's had a banged-up knee that he hurt in the Baltimore game, but he's supposed to be good to go. He sat out practice a little bit earlier in the week, but all indications are he's fine.
And now on the Patriots side, Rob Gronkowski, how's he feeling?
I mean, he's been banged up all year. Yep. He hasn't really said much about it, but the big report this morning from Ian Rappaport is that this could be Gronk's last game, and he's going to seriously consider retiring. So, this could be your last look at Gronk, which is kind of sad.
I know, but I think it will be, too. Well, excellent job, Dakota. We'll check in again next hour. Enjoy the football up in a frigid Foxborough today. Thank you, buddy.
All right, thank you. Have a good day, Sid.
All righty, take care. 1-800-848-WABC, 1-800-848-9222. Our next guest, I mentioned this at the very top of the show, one of my favorite people in football. When you talk personnel and or coaching moves, not necessarily the action on the field, those types of things, there's nobody better than Charlie Casserly. Again, many, many years and 3 Super Bowl teams in Washington as the GM and assistant GM to Bobby Beathard with the Redskins. Spent many years working for the late Bob McNair in Houston with the Texans. Recently consulted for the New York Jets. And now for many years, after leaving CBS, has been the go-to guy at the NFL Network. We're going to talk to Charlie about all the NFL coaching changes, including the new guy in town with the New York Jets. Just fired less than 2 weeks ago by the Miami Dolphins, and now he's the head coach of your New York Jets. NFL Network's Charlie Casserly makes his debut on Sid Sports Sunday right after these words.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. 77 WABC. Free Sid, free sports thinking on demand on the free WABC radio app.
Back here on Sid Sports Sunday, a crazy couple of weeks here. That Black Monday after the last day of the regular season. NFL teams firing coaches all over the place. I believe 8 teams at one point were looking for a new head coach. And over the years, I can tell you this, to the folks listening right now here in New York City. My favorite personnel guy has always been Charlie Casserly, NFL Network analyst. You can follow Charlie on Twitter, at Charlie Casserly. Here's a guy that spent 23 years with the Washington Redskins as an assistant to Bobby Beathard, won 2 Super Bowls. They won 3, had a great stay in Houston with the Texans, did some work with the local team, the Jets, just a couple of years ago, and is a great TV guy on top of it, my friend Charlie Casserly. Happy New Year, Charlie. How are you, pal?
Happy New Year. Good to be with you, Sid, in New York this time, not Miami.
That's right. We've made the switch. This is your first time with me on here in New York on this Sid Sports Sunday. Well, Charlie, I do want to ask you about some of your career. Bob McNair passed away this year, the owner of the Houston Texans, just a couple of weeks ago. And I know he gave you an opportunity long after the Redskin job was finished. And I did think about you. What was it like working for Mr. McNair all those years?
It was good. He let you run the franchise, provided you what you needed. He was aware of all our decisions. I'd say the one that stuck out is when we took Mario Williams with the first pick, and obviously it was an unpopular pick. And number one, Vince Young was from Houston, and there was a 500,000 University of Texas alumni that lived in Houston. Okay? Right. So, and then Reggie Bush was a popular pick, but he never wavered. When we told him this is what we were going to do, he never wavered, and he backed us the whole way, and obviously it proved to be the right pick. But he took as much grief as we did.
I'm sure. And those days with the Redskins, Charlie, those, the 3 Super Bowl wins, obviously. I tell this to people all the time. What Joe Gibbs did was amazing, considering that, again, 3 different quarterbacks. Joe Theismann got to 2 of them, 1-1. He beat Miami. You had the Doug Williams amazing win over Denver. Mark Rippon, his great win as well. And by the way, if my Giants don't beat Jay Schrader in the championship game, you may have 4 quarterbacks in the Super Bowl. That was an amazing feat you guys accomplished in Washington.
No, it really was. I mean, and that's Joe Gibbs. He did a great job of adapting his offense to the quarterback and the personnel he had around him. And you got to give him a lot of credit. No one's ever done what he's done.
You think back, though, now, Charlie, about all those great years with the Redskins, and we just talked about it and where they are now. Listen, a lot of fans around the league don't think very highly of Daniel Snyder. I'm not sure people in Washington think highly of him either. They have really not been a big-time relevant football. I know they lost both quarterbacks with broken legs this year, Smith Burst, but they've not been very good for a long time. And as a guy that spent 23 years in D.C., Charlie, they love their football. It's got to be very depressing.
The fans are, of course, disappointed, and it was an interesting year because they were in first place, and then Alex Smith broke his leg, and then Colt McCoy, not that he could have carried it, we don't know, he broke his leg in the next game. So now all of a sudden, Mark Sanchez is your quarterback for a game, and then you got Josh Johnson, who hadn't started a game in I don't know how long. Okay, so that really hurt him there. They played better at the end of the year when Johnson kind of got into a little bit of a rhythm. And they were competitive and tough out there, except for the last game against the Eagles.
Right.
It was over.
Yeah.
But people are disappointed. But Dan Snyder gets a bad rap. When he came, he was a learning process, like all owners. But he's turned it over to Joe Gibbs and Mike Shanahan and now Bruce Allen. So he's basically signed off on them running the team, and he's backed them when they needed it with financial resources.
Charlie Casserly, NFL Network analyst, on with us here on Sit Sports Sunday. Hey, Charlie, I believe a couple of years ago you helped Chris Johnson and Woody Johnson, consulted with the Jets. Was that the Maccagnan and Todd Bowles hire?
Yeah, it was, yes, actually. Chris wasn't involved at that point in time. It was Woody.
Right. Now, Woody went to work for Donald Trump, so Chris is kind of overseeing the team. And that's the big story up here this week, is that they've replaced Todd Bowles, Charlie, with Adam Gase. Now, my opinion is it's not a bad hire. I saw what Adam did in Denver with Tim Tebow and Peyton Manning. And although Mike Tannenbaum, Charlie's a very, very good friend of mine, the truth is trying to win games with Ryan Tannehill, Jay Cutler, and Brock Osweiler isn't easy. So give me a 40-year-old guy that won in Denver with good quarterback play for a young Sam Darnold. I know they wanted Mike McCarthy. I hear it. But the truth is this may not be a bad hire for the Jets. What do you think?
Well, if we just take the quarterback position, put Peyton Manning aside, okay? He took Tebow, who had no real passing skills,
right?
And they won a division championship with him by changing their offense. Okay, so he adapted to Tebow,
and they won a playoff game too. By the way, I believe they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. Yeah. And then Ryan Tannehill. Let's go to Chicago. Cutler played the best football of his career with him as the coordinator. And Tannehill, I think he got the most out of Tannehill. That's all you can ask. Does he get the most out of the players he's coaching? And with the quarterbacks, he's done that. So I think if we're just zeroing in on Darnold, I think this is a plus for Sam Darnold. It's a plus for the Jets. What about Cleveland? Greg Williams on his way to the Jets to coach the defense. Did a very good job with Baker Mayfield on that football team second half of the season. Kitchens, the new head coach for the Cleveland Browns. What about that hire?
Well, Greg Williams is an experienced coach. He'll be an aggressive coach. He'll bring an attitude to the defense, a confident attitude. He has a history of having success as a defensive coordinator. So he'll certainly energize the operation.
Tell me, though, about what do you think about the Browns elevating Kitchens to the head coach?
You know, I don't know him that well at all. I mean, I don't know, he's come out of nowhere except Cleveland knew him. Okay?
Right.
And John Dorsey, John is a guy that really believes in what he does, and you know he will take players and make moves that other people will say, well, not so sure about that, but he's had success with those not so sure moves. Okay?
Right.
Baker Mayfield and Fisher the tackle at Kansas City, we took number one. So I've got a lot of confidence in John's instincts and football knowledge. So I like what John's done there.
NFL Network,
believe in John.
Yeah, me too. NFL Network analyst Charlie Casserly. Hey, I like what they're doing in Tampa Bay, Charlie. Todd Bowles, most recently let go by the Jets. He goes to the Buccaneers to run the defense. And I thought Bruce Arians, those 5 years he spent coaching in Arizona, just did such a terrific job. Wherever Bruce has gone, he's done a great job. I know he kind of liked that Browns job, but I like that 1-2 punch, Arians and Bowles on the way to Tampa Bay. What do you think?
Oh, I like it too. And I think Todd's a tremendous defensive coordinator. Obviously, Arians has had success. Arians, and you know he brings a little bit of a cocky attitude and confidence to you. But let me say this: their offense was number one in the league passing last year and number 3 overall. So offense should not be their issue. Todd Monken, their offensive coordinator, did a phenomenal job. I don't know anybody could have done better than him. They've got to they get ravaged by injuries in the secondary. So that's the number one thing they got to do is get that secondary done and figure out a running game. You know, the team the year before I think was 9-7.
Yeah.
So it's not a team that's desperate. The quarterback's lack of consistency has kept them from taking the next step. Though obviously they got a lot out of them this year.
I think they're married to Jameis Winston. I mean, you remember last year was kind of a circus. Dirk Carter kept going back and forth between Ryan Fitzpatrick and Jameis Winston. Really didn't help the team. But I think that Arians comes to Tampa Bay and he's ready to go with Winston, yes?
Oh, they made the commitment to Winston. So the organization did because they have to pick up an option for next year, so they picked it up. Now it's not a guaranteed option, but they don't have any other option.
Right.
So if they come up with another option, then maybe. But I think one of the reasons they hired Bruce Arians, was because he had a relationship back to a football camp when Winston was a teenager.
Wow. Didn't know that. Right here, Charlie Casserly. So this Cliff Kingsbury, who I remember playing football in college, that's when I'm getting old, by the way, Charlie. He's at USC all these years. Lynn Swann really liked him, didn't want to let him go. I mean, he really tried to block Cliff from getting a job, but in the end, he does get the job with Arizona. They've got the young quarterback there, Josh Rosen, who struggled a bit last season. But this guy, Kingsbury, is a big offensive mind. What do you think about his hire in Arizona?
Yeah, I think a lot of it will depend on staff and the defensive coordinator and his ability to manage games. Here's what I mean by that. Positive is he's a bright guy, innovative offensive mind, should do well with quarterbacks. You're not going to out-scheme people in the NFL. If you do it, you can be Chip Kelly and did a marvelous job. People catch up with it. Okay, Baltimore's option game. The Chargers caught up with that.
Right.
Okay, the run and shoot years ago, people catch up with these things. So it'll come back to, is he a leader? How does he manage games? How does he discipline players? How does he pick players? But who's he going to hire as his defensive coordinator? It was interesting in the press conference, reading about it, so I'm going to rely upon the general manager for help in that area. Well, I'm nothing against Steve Keim, but you ought to have some ideas as the head coach. Okay? You can't just say, I'm going to coach offense and somebody else will handle defense. It's not that simple.
Right.
So I want to see how he manages the games. The book on him, everything, I gave you all the positives. The negatives there were, the defense was not real good there, and that's why you win. You have to have both. The other thing is they seem to be lack of discipline, not discipline in character, but discipline and consistency defensively on the field. So it'll be a big hire, and we'll see how it goes.
One more, and we'll wrap this up, Charlie. Always great to talk to you. Charlie Casserly, the wonderful NFL Network analyst. And you can follow Charlie on Twitter. He's a great follow, at Charlie Casserly. I'm going to put you in Dave Gettleman's office in New Jersey, a place you love. I know, Charlie. You're in New Jersey today. You're in Dave Gettleman's office, and you've got to figure out this quarterback thing. Eli Manning is set to make a lot of money. Let's say Eli is willing to restructure. So money is no longer an issue, right? Do you want Eli Manning back for his 16th season as a Giants starting quarterback, or is it time to turn the page?
You know, it's time to turn the page, but we have a blank page. It's the next one. That's the problem.
I know, but you know what's funny? You just said everybody says this. No one. I've asked this question, Charlie, and I'm saying this not to blow smoke your way. You're the smartest football guy I know. But no matter who I ask, they all say the same thing. It's time to turn the page. And my thing is, just turn it then. If it means, I don't care, some backup quarterback, some Matt Jones out of Duke, and they go 3-13. If it's time to turn the page, turn it.
Well, he did play better in the second half of the year where the offensive line was better. They went to a play-action game, put him under center, and those things helped him. And he was decent. Now, the way I look at it is this, and this is something you're going to have to go out and look at your available options. Whether it's Foles, but Philly's not going to trade Foles to the Giants. I mean, Foles is going to have to fight his way out of the contract and become a free agent and refuse any contract extensions in a trade. But somebody might take him anyway because he has played well. Bridgewater's the sleeper because he's healthy. The Jets saw that in the spring and the summer. New Orleans loves the guy, and this guy was a hell of a prospect before he got hurt. And he's the guy who would make me gamble on him and then let Eli go in that time.
Okay.
So, and because I'm not sure you can count on the draft. It's not a heavy draft in quarterbacks.
Would you take, if you're the Giants and he's still available at number 6, would you take the kid Haskins out of Ohio State?
I can answer that question when we come to April. I haven't done enough on the draft. I'm just starting the draft right now.
Right.
So
That's fair.
He seems to be the consensus number 1, but not a consensus guy to take high. Okay?
Right. No, that's true.
So that seems to be the book on it.
That's more of an indictment of this class that comes out this year. Hey, Charlie, as always, It's a wonderful conversation. You've been great to me for many, many years. New York, Miami, back to New York. And thank you so much for hopping on Sid Sports Sunday, buddy. Thank you so much.
Hey, great to be with you. Great to have you back in New York.
Hey, thank you, Charlie. Charlie Casserly.
'77 WABC. Spectacular guests. Spectacular picks. Spectacular sports. Spectacular stories. Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda.
Spectacular.
77 WABC.
Spectacular.
All right, we've done a bunch of football already today. The former great GM of the Washington Redskins, Houston Texans, consultant New York Jets, now NFL Network star Charlie Casserly was here. We checked in with our guy Dakota up in Foxborough, Pats and Chargers, and broke down the wins yesterday for both Kansas City and the Rams. Mark Feinsand, who covered the Yankees for 17 years here, the New York Daily News, what a great writer, and was actually a weekly guest on the Sid Rosenberg Show on 640 Sports in Pompano Beach, Florida, for about 2 years because we had the Yankees. He's a diehard Washington Redskin fan, too, so we can appreciate what Charlie Casserly did. It's been a long time since that's been the case in D.C. Here he is now with the MLB Network, one of the sharpest baseball guys in the country, New Jersey's own Mark Feinsand. Good morning, Mark.
Can we have Charlie back?
God, wouldn't that be great? Charlie and Gibbs and Jack Kent Cook and Bobby Beathard and Joe Theismann, wouldn't that be great?
I'll take Rippon. I'll take any of them.
Any of them. Well, Rippon won a Super Bowl. Of course you would.
Rippon did win a Super Bowl.
Yep. How are you, buddy?
I'm good. How you doing, pal?
Good. I want to throw a little baseball in today. Both local teams doing big things with infielders. But I want to start with the Mets and the front office here, Mark. They announced earlier this week that David Wright restructured his deal. He's supposed to make a lot of money as a player this year. But he took a lot of that money and gave it back to the Mets. And now he gets a job in the front office, I guess, working with both Jeff Wilpon and the GM Brody Van Wagenen. What do you think about that? Is that kind of a symbolic move for the Mets, Mark, or do you think that, Sandy, or do you think that David Wright is actually going to play a role in the Met organization?
Well, I think that remains to be seen just how active he wants to be, but all early indications are that he really wants to be involved and has, have a say in some stuff. And, the fact that they flew him out to the winter meetings and had him in the suite and had him taking part in some of their meetings shows me that maybe he does want more.
I didn't know they did that. He was actually in Vegas?
He was in Vegas with them at the winter meetings. So that shows me that he actually wants a bit of an active role and not just sort of a symbolic position. Teams do this all the time where they bring back some of their older players or some of their former players to be special advisor, special assistant, whatever the title may be. Some of them are, grip and grin handshake jobs where they go to events and represent the club. And some of them actually get involved. I think Wright's going to be in the latter category.
It's funny you say a lot of times guys go back to their teams and you're right about that, and that's part of the reason why the Yankees feel so burnt, because Derek Jeter decided to stay in South Florida, take a job with the Marlins, and hasn't exactly endeared himself down there. But again, here's the difference. Everybody loves David Wright. He stays with the Mets. Derek Jeter, he takes the first job.
Well, Jeter wanted to be the boss. He wanted to be the guy running the show, not a guy who's got a small say in the matter. So he wasn't going to be owning the Yankees anytime soon. So that was a little bit of a different situation. The Yankees have plenty of their guys, former guys, in this kind of role. Reggie Jackson's been an advisor to Cashman and time runner for a long time. They've got guys like A-Rod Swisher, Matsui. They have a lot of guys in that kind of role, and they use them in different ways. Some of them go down and work with the kids in the minor leagues. Some of them help recruit free agents. Some of them are just sort of all-encompassing beings like Reggie. So it's a different sort of stratosphere for each guy. But Jeter was never going to be a special assistant. Jeter said when he was a player, I want to own a team.
Right.
And unless the time runners were going to sell a mistake of the Yankees, you knew that wasn't going to be in New York.
Talk about Jed Lowrie, gets a 2-year, $20 million deal with the Mets. All-star season last year. Mark Feinsand in Oakland, 23 homers, knocked in 99 runs. I know he's 35 years old, but he's a very good baseball player. The bigger question is, if I'm aligning the Met infield for opening day, right, I'm going to go Alonso at first, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong. I'm going to go Robinson Cano at second, Rosario at short, Jed Lowrie at third. So to me, this means less playing time from McNeil, and maybe goodbye to Todd Frazier, who's set to make $9 million this year. What does the Jed Lowrie signing for the Mets mean to you?
Well, the only way you say goodbye to Todd Frazier is if the Mets can find an equally overpaid reliever or something like that to trade him for.
Well, give me an example of a name like that.
I don't even have an example.
Okay.
That's why I don't necessarily think he's going to be gone. I'm not sure Alonso's there on opening day. I think there are service time questions. Do they hold him out? What's his spring look like? I think in a perfect world, Alonso has a great spring and is the opening day first baseman, but I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I think Frazier could end up seeing a lot more time at first base, at least early in the season, until Alonso is ready to come up and do his thing. The one thing about Lowrie, he can play second, he can play third, he can play first. So gives them some options in terms of matchups, in terms of, some guys who are a little older, maybe Robinson Cano, maybe Frazier, need a day off. Lowrie can fill in there. The one thing they still don't have is a backup shortstop.
Right.
Which is why I was curious that when they signed Lowrie, what Marwin Gonzalez's asking price is right now, because he seems like he would have been an even better fit for that sort of jack-of-all-trades who can fill a bunch of roles, because he also does play shortstop.
Red Sox avoided arbitration with Mookie Betts when they gave him a $9.5 million well-deserved increase. All he did was win the MVP and win a World Series. But it didn't take long for the New York Mets to eclipse the $9.5 that Betts got, giving Jacob deGrom 9.6, which is a great move. And I guess now it's just a matter of time, right, Mark, before they sign deGrom to a long-term deal.
I would think so. I mean, he certainly got an ally in the front office in Brody and his former agent. So, the guy who last summer was preaching from the hilltops that the Mets had to extend him. So it'd be interesting to see how that happens. There's been a lot of talk, although no formal offers yet, from people I've spoken to. And, I wouldn't be surprised at all if that extension happens, by opening day or shortly, after that. But yeah, certainly a well-deserved $9.6 million raise for Jacob deGrom. Will make $17 million in 2019.
Met GM Brody Van Wagenen, I should say, set to join us on this show sometime in the next 2 weeks. We're very excited about that. So look what the Mets have done. They added Cano, they added Lowrie, they brought back Familia, they added Edwin Diaz. They've added some Ramos behind the plate. So you look at what the Mets have done so far since Brody took over, based upon, believe it or not, the success they had having the best record in the NL the second half of the season and some healthy pitchers coming back and keeping Syndergaard. Is it crazy to think the Mets are the best team in the NL East?
Not right now. It's not crazy. If the Nationals bring back Bryce Harper, then I think you're a little crazy because I think that would make Washington the presumptive favorites in the division.
But why? They still can't score even with Harper. And I know they got Corbin, but I got to tell you, you're not going to convince me that Corbin, Scherzer, and Strasburg are better than DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Wheeler. You're not.
No, but they've made some other moves this winter that I think were nice moves for them. Kurt Suzuki behind the plate, Brian Dozier.
Right.
They brought back Matt Adams back. I like their team. If they bring back Harper, I think then they're the favorites to me with the addition of Corbin. But that said, they haven't brought back Harper yet. But
right.
I think when you look at that division right now, there are 4 teams that any one of them you could make a reasonable, logical case for why the Braves, the Nationals, the Mets, or the Phillies are a team that can win that division. And obviously, the Phillies aren't done yet. I'm assuming the Phillies still have more moves to make.
Right.
They still have more stupid money to spend. But I think those 4 teams have all improved themselves, even if the Phillies don't get Machado or Harper. I like the moves, Segura and McCutchen and David Robertson. The Phillies have made some moves that have made them a better team as well. And I think, when you look at the landscape of this division, it could be a real 4-team race.
All right, 1 minute on the Yankees. They signed DJ LeMahieu. That means basically Manny Machado is not coming here. I guess the favorite now is the Chicago White Sox, another team that is really looking to improve inside that very competitive AL Central. They bring in Troy Tulowitzki. He'll be the shortstop. I like that until, assuming, of course, he's healthy enough to play, until Didi gets back. So the LeMahieu signing, 2 things. A, what kind of player do you think he'll be for the Yanks? And B, my assumption is right? Machado's not coming.
Well, I think your assumption's probably right, although I'll believe it when I see him actually in another uniform at a press conference, because I just don't ever. I've learned a long time ago not to ever really count out the Yankees completely, because they just do things that you don't think they're going to do sometimes. I think Philadelphia is probably the front runner for Machado right now, and not Chicago. I think Philly's going to have the highest offer and ultimately be where he winds up. As far as the Yankees, I think LeMahieu's a nice player. He's got that sort of right-handed inside-out swing. He hits the ball to the opposite field a lot of hard contact. So he's not a guy who relied on the Coors Field effect necessarily to have good offensive numbers. And he didn't know, he's sort of like Jed Lowry, can play all over the infield, and the Yankees will use him all over the infield. And I think more than anything else, it's just an insurance factor. Troy Tulowitzki was a nice signing. It's a nice story. Everybody says he's healthy, but he's played, 10 games, 18, 30 games in the last 2 years. So it's just hard to believe that he's going to hold up over the course of an entire season. And this way, at least, if he gets hurt, you can slide Gleyber Torres over to short, put DJ LeMahieu at second base, who's been an all-star second baseman, and all of a sudden you're protected. So I like the move. Certainly, I think Machado would have made them a better team, but you were not getting Manny Machado for 2 years and $24 million.
There you have it. That's why Sandy's the best. Check out his work at MLB Network, formerly of the New York Daily News. Great job with the Yankees. Now a great job covering all of Major League Baseball, and more importantly, a dear friend of mine, the great Mark Feinsand. Terrific job, Sandy. Thank you so much.
You got it, pal.
Great to talk to you. We'll take a short break. When we get back, all this guy did was win the Super Bowl MVP, that epic New York football giant win over the Buffalo Bills in 1990. We talked to former Cardinal and Giant great O.J. Anderson right after these words.
Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Ow! Another one bites the dust. Hey, hey! Another one bites.
77 WABC.
1, 2, 3.
Sid Sports Sunday. Every Sunday. The NJDiet.com studios. 77 WABC New York. Cumulus Station. This is Sid Sports Sunday. Driven by Ramsey Mazda. Around the country. Around New York. The stories you're talking about. The stats you need.
And Clemson runs out on the field and celebrates. They come to California and strike gold. The golden scepter is ours. Clemson downs Alabama 44-16 to win their second national championship in 3 years and their third overall.
These are the moments you won't forget.
Second and goal up to 2. Elliott again with the carry, and Elliott diving for the goal line. Touchdown. He went over the right side behind Zach Martin and Lael Collins and found just enough a crease to dive in for 6. And Dallas with a 16-14 lead with 12:28 to go.
This is Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda on 77 WABC.
Take a deep breath. This is the season. This is it right here. Is snapped, placed, kicked, and it is no good! No good! It is no good and the Eagles win!
He missed it!
And who knows where Cody Parkey is headed next season.
Now, Sid Rosenberg.
How about that kick? That kid Parkey in Chicago wanted to kill himself last week. My God. But the Eagles move on, and the Eagles, of course, are the later game today, about just after 4 p.m. Eastern Time in New Orleans for the 1-seed New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees. And, of course, the winner of that game today will take on last night's winner between the Rams and the Cowboys, the number 2 seed Los Angeles Rams, who made it look kind of easy, to be honest. 23-15 the final score. Dallas led 7-3. The Rams went on to score 20 unanswered after that. And that was your football game. So, again, we know the deal because the Eagles are the 6th seed. If the Eagles continue this unbelievable ride with Nick Foles, who did the same thing last year, then, of course, the Rams get to host the Eagles next week. But if, in fact, the Saints end the Nick Foles Eagle dream in New Orleans today, then the Rams would travel to New Orleans to take on the 1-seed Saints. And then, of course, on the AFC side of things, this upstart Colt team that lost like one football game over 3 months. The world talking about Andrew Luck, and deservedly so. They've been great. They got trounced. And it wasn't even Mahomes. He had a good day. Or Williams had a very good day, actually, running the football for Kansas City. That was all about, you're not going to believe this, the Chiefs' defense. But, if you pay attention, you would know that for some reason in Arrowhead, that Chief defense pretty good this year. Only giving up about 18 points per game. In fact, the last regular season game at home, the Raiders never scored a touchdown. So for some reason in Kansas City, Andy Reid's defense is significantly better than on the road, and they proved it again yesterday by completely shutting down Luck, Mack, Hilton, and the Colts. Never a game. 17-0. The Colts did get a special teams touchdown second quarter to cut it to 17-7. But in the end, man, it was an easy 31-13 win for Kansas City. So they stay home no matter what because they're the 1 seed, and they will host the winner of the early game today in about 3 hours up in Foxborough between Tom Brady and the Patriots and Phil Rivers and the Chargers. We did tweet earlier today, hashtag Sid Sports. Andy Reid has been to 1 Super Bowl, a loss. That TO team in Philadelphia losing to New England in Jacksonville. I covered that one of the many that I covered, and I'll be back in Atlanta covering the Super Bowl again this year. First time since Super Bowl 48 in New York. This time taking my good buddy Bernard McGurk to his first Super Bowl. So the Bernie and Sid Show will come live Thursday and Friday, then Sid Sports Sunday over the weekend live from Atlanta. But that was the only Super Bowl Andy Reid got to, despite many good teams in Philly and Kansas City. And I did ask the question on Twitter this morning, is Andy Reid the best coach ever not to win a Super Bowl? And our good buddy Joe Salamino, very dear friend of the Bernie and Sid Show on this show, good answer here. He says 1 Bud Grant. Grant did lose 4 of them with the Vikings, right? 3 of those with Fran Tarkenton and 1 with Jack Kemp. Number 2, Marv Levy, who lost all 4 with Jim Kelly. 3, Marty Schottenheimer. Now, Marv Levy at number 2 is interesting. Is OJ there? No. Marv Levy is interesting at number 2 because that was one of those Bills losses did come at the hands of the Giants in Super Bowl 25, where, in fact, O.J. Anderson won the MVP. So O.J. set to join us sometime this hour. We'll also get Danny Bianculo on, Danny B, making his picks, because he's the best in the business. But let's talk some Philadelphia sports. The Eagles are the big story here. Nick Foles, remember, replaced an injured Carson Wentz last year. Took the Eagles right through the playoffs and eventually a jaw-dropping victory over Tom Brady and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. Now, Wentz gets healthy this year, gets the job back, right? Why not? Second-year quarterback, was the MVP before he got hurt last year. It's his team. But he gets hurt again, Carson Wentz. And the Eagles are 6-7. They're left for dead. Vikings are making the playoffs, right? Wrong. Eagles win their last 3. Nick Foles does it again in dramatic fashion, and they make the playoffs. In Chicago last week for the NFC North champion Chicago Bears, the Bears are leading that game in the fourth quarter. Foles engineers a touchdown drive. Now, look, did they get lucky on the Parkey miss? Yes. He actually made the first one, but they called a timeout just in time so the kick didn't count, and then Parkey doinked it. The facts are the facts. Foles does it again. And if the Eagles can pull out one more miracle, and this is going to be a tough one, and find a way to beat the Saints and Drew Brees in New Orleans today, they will once again be just one step away from going back to the Super Bowl. That's not the big story. The big story is with Nick Foles, because all we're hearing is Foles is gone. They're not going to pay Foles what they owe him next year, close to $20 million. So somebody in the NFL, maybe the Giants, going to pay Nick Foles $20 million next year. But if you're an Eagle fan, how do you let this guy go? You got to be sick. I mean, I know Wentz is good, don't get me wrong, but if Foles does it again, so one of the biggest Eagle fans I know is a man that is actually quite responsible for the station being on the air because his company, NJDiet.com, has been with us for many, many, many years. He's a very loyal guy. Thank God we do well with him. But the fact is, his diet plan is the best in the world. There's a reason why NJ Diet guarantees you'll get a ton of your money back if you don't lose 20 to 50 pounds in only 40 days. And that's because he never gives the money back, because you always lose the weight. Customizes the diet for you, and in the end, you're healthier, you lose weight, you're better in bed. All these things happen because of the genius that is Dr. Arthur Turovitz, the biggest Eagle fan in the country. And here he is on Sit Sports Sunday. Good morning, Dr. T.
Good morning. I was getting goosebumps listening to that whole go-over of the Eagles last year and everything else. It's been amazing.
It really has. So as a guy, and I see a beautiful family, you sent me pictures last week. You all get dialed up in your Eagle jerseys on game day. Jerseys. That's right. So if Nick Foles wins again today, and it's a big if, but if he does,
yes,
and now you're in the NFC Championship game, and you just won the Super Bowl with Foles, you tell me, Dr. T, how do you just hand the team back to Carson Wentz and let Nick Foles go elsewhere?
You know, I have no idea. I'm glad I don't have to make that decision. I'm just, it's tough. I mean, they're obviously committed to Wentz. He has an injury. Let's not forget that team does not go to where it needs to go last year without him there. He comes back again, and I know he's ready to play, but I think that type of injury, there was a few, you watched him early in the season, there's plays where he's still not confident in that leg when he needs to step up in the pocket and really drive the ball there, like throw it hard. It just didn't seem like he had that confidence yet in that leg. And I think that would take some time, and then he gets injured again, and there you go. I don't know how you get away from him because he's done so well, but like you said, I mean, if this guy wins, you know, everything goes out the window. He keeps winning. It's just crazy. I don't know. It's like the guy finally got it. It's almost like you know, he's in that matrix zone. He just sees it and then he's running with it. It's amazing to watch.
It does remind me of the Giants situation. Sims was having an MVP season in 1990. They were like 10-1, like Wentz. He gets hurt against Buffalo. Hostetler takes over. They make the run. Somehow they beat the 49ers in the NFC Championship game. They beat Joe Montana. Then they beat Jim Kelly, win the Super Bowl. Now, here's the difference. Parcells retires after that game, Dr. T. Yes. Hands over the Giant coaching reins to one of the worst ever, Ray Handley. And Handley decides, opening night the very next season against the Niners, Hostetler is his quarterback. In fact, in the 2 years that Ray Handley coached, Hostetler replaced Sims. It wasn't until 2 years later, after they fired Ray Handley, the Giants, and brought in Dan Reeves, that Sims regained his starting job. And by the way, took the Giants that year right to the playoffs against the Vikings. And Hostetler in those 2 years wasn't very good. So the point is, sometimes the backup comes in. I know Foles has had success. He had a 27 touchdown, 2 interception season a couple years ago. But the point is,
we also saw some bad out of him. Too. Right. There's a reason that he was bouncing around a little bit.
Right. So this postseason success doesn't mean that Carson Wentz shouldn't be the guy, right?
No, I don't think so. I think you're committed to him, and he got hurt, and I think he's a young guy, and I think, he comes back, that leg is healthy, and I think he's got a lot with him. Plus, you got to remember, when Wentz is playing this year, that whole team falls apart completely. I mean, you got injuries everywhere. Yeah. He's not playing with the same team he had last year. Secondary was demolished. Your running game's not the same. You know, you can't just lay it all on him. That team was really riddled. It was decimated by injuries.
How many years have you been an Eagle fan, Dr. T?
Since I'm 5 years old, so 40 years.
So you were around for the Ron Jaworski team that lost to the Raiders in the Super Bowl?
Toward the end of it, I know the history, obviously, and the players that were on those teams. But yeah, I remember it vaguely.
Right, and you remember the good Randall Cunningham teams, although he never got there. He actually got to the championship game with the Minnesota Vikings, and of course your Eagle team behind Donovan McNabb that lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots.
Yep.
With all that said, Dr. T, is this group the last 2 years the best Eagle team you've seen?
Look, it's tough to argue against a Super Bowl champion. However, if you remember those late 80s teams, I mean, you go down that roster, and especially the defense, Brown, White, Simmons, Joyner, Hopkins, Waters. That defensive line was so good that Mike Golick looked great around those guys. It was amazing. And then the offensive side of the ball, you know, when Randall was on, we used to call him Starship 12 because you had no idea where he was sometimes. But when he was on, he was amazing. He had Keith Byers, he had Jackson, Mike Quick. Man, that's a tough team. That Fog Bowl game, you know, that team was amazing. That was the whole. If memory serves, that was the same year we had that when the Oilers the body bag game where they just annihilated the Oilers on a Monday night where they didn't even have enough receivers. And I remember Warren Moon was coming in. He was throwing for all kinds of records, and they came in and the Eagles just destroyed that team.
That was their best team. Andre Waters back there, Buddy Ryan as the head coach. I remember the Jaworski team very well. Wilbert Montgomery, Harold Carmichael. I mean, that was a great team. Rod Martin killed them in that Super Bowl, and Plunkett beat them. But for me,
Herm Edwards on defense as well, and the defense is very strong, I believe, too.
Yep, but I do think that was the best team, that Randall Cunningham team. One quick one on basketball, about a minute here. The Sixers get Jimmy Butler. People start to think with Butler, Embiid, and Simmons, they're now better than Boston in the East. And now we keep hearing the same thing. Butler did this in Minnesota, Chicago, wherever he goes. He's a team killer. Is Jimmy Butler going to destroy the 76ers?
He's a diva. You knew what you were getting with him, but I do think I think it's a little bit of the coaching also. I think Brown might be the guy to get him to this point, but I think you might need somebody a little bit stronger with a little bit more of a resume to really get everybody's respect. But like Butler reminds me, you know, we're talking football. I mean, Butler's almost like a Jeff George. Wherever he goes, there's a problem somewhere. He's amazing, and you see it, and he's just great. And then all of a sudden, like, what happened? And he's great, and then it's like, what happened? I don't know if he's the right fit over there, but it could be some of the coaching as well.
I totally agree. Stephen A. Smith, by the way, just to show how brilliant you are, Dr. T, told me the same thing 2 weeks ago, and he's a Philly guy. Brown may be the wrong guy. Last thing, again, NJ Diet. Check it out, njdiet.com, 855-5NJ-DIET. Another one of my buddies down in South Florida actually put on Facebook. You can see it. Sid Rosenberg Facebook just started the diet. He has lost 12 pounds in 5 days. I'm not even kidding. So you tell me, Dr. T, as the guy that is the best in the world at this, football's coming up. It's cold out here in New York. I want to sit in my apartment all day, watch Pats and Chargers, Eagles and Saints, and just eat. Can I eat healthy on an NFL football Sunday?
You absolutely are. I love to cook, and today for my family, I'm going to bake some wings, do some hot wings. I'm also going to do some chili. And instead of frying them, we bake the wings. The chili, I take half the meat that's beef. I put in some dark meat turkey, half the amount of beans. You won't even know the difference. Whatever. Healthy, you can substitute the mayonnaise for a little bit of yogurt in your blue cheese dipping sauce. And, if you eat it, you won't even know the difference. A couple of beers in you won't even know the difference. Light beers, preferably light.
Right. Sounds good. Listen, good luck to your Eagles today. Thank you for all you do for the Bernie and Sid Show and all of WABC. And on behalf of millions of people around the country who you've made healthier and look better, thank you to NJDiet.com. You were great today. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
There he is, the great Dr. T, NJDiet.com. Also, earlier today, we did speak to Dakota Randall up at Foxborough, where the Pats are getting set to host the Chargers. That's brought to you by my dear friend Pete Morgan and the fine people at Peerless Boilers. Upgrade your boiler with a 95% efficient Peerless Boiler Combi and start saving on your heat and hot water bills today. Go to peerlessboilers.com. Put in your zip code and you'll find a friendly dealer near you. Nobody better than Pete Morgan. Remember, Peerless Borders, America's best built borders. Now we'll come back with the MVP of Super Bowl 25, former Giant great running back O.J. Anderson, plus Danny B with the picks. And we'll go to New Orleans live to see what the latest is with the Saints and the Eagles. Sid Sports Sunday rolls on.
77 WABC. Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda every Sunday. New York sports and more. 77 WABC and the free WABC radio app.
We're going to talk to Danny Biancullo, making his picks, dbwins.com. 2 big games today, but all kinds of other stuff going on. College basketball, NBA. So Danny is patiently waiting. Today's been kind of a weird show because we've got 3 guests. It's a big time for the football season. Guests are moving all around. And Danny, who does his own great show Saturday nights, 6 o'clock here on ABC, Inside the Numbers, is a team player. And he's going to move around throughout the morning so we get everybody else in, although people do love, as they should, Danny Biancullo's spot. Anyway, talking about Super Bowl, yes, the Bernie and Sid in the morning show will be there in Atlanta, not for the big game, that's lame, for Super Bowl 53. And we'll do the Bernie and Sid show on Thursday and Friday, and I'll do this show from Radio Row on the weekend. This will be my 15th Super Bowl that I cover on the road, but my first since Super Bowl 48 when I came from Miami to New York to cover that game where Peyton Manning got his ass kicked by the Seahawks because I left the sports and went into politics. But now that we do sports too on Bernie and Sid and we've got this show, we are going back to the Super Bowl. My favorite Super Bowl memory, and I've been to a bunch of them, a bunch of games. Super Bowl 25. I was there in Tampa. By the way, that was the time of the Gulf War and that great Whitney Houston, God rest her soul, national anthem. You know, it took me 4.5 hours to get inside the goddamn stadium because of the metal detectors. We were at war, bottom line. But I got in there that day, and OJ, you'll appreciate this. I came in real early. I went to Pleasure Island in Orlando the night before, got wasted, partied, left at like 4 in the morning, got to Tampa, waited online, but I got in very early, a good 4 hours before kickoff. And what I saw, OJ Anderson, was Steve Diassi. No one was in the stadium. It was completely empty. The teams were still in the locker room. Diassi comes walking out, no shirt, no shoes, nothing, with a camcorder. Remember those camcorders back then? And he's shooting video of an empty stadium in Tampa. That's how amazing it was for Diassi. Little did he know that about 8 hours later, the Giants would beat the Bills, and my guest right now would win the MVP. Here he is, all-time Giant great, O.J. Anderson. Good morning, Juice.
Good morning.
How are you, pal?
Great. That's a great lead-up, man. I love the way you just slowly brought it in. And such a true statement. Diassi was there very early, and he was there shooting the empty stadium. Unbelievable.
It was unbelievable, and that day was just great. Listen, before we talk about the NFL, though, Juice, I went to University of Miami in 1984, and to this day I'm very, very close with Bernie Kosar. And they made some changes. Mark Richt retired. They brought in Manny Diaz. But everybody thinks Miami started with Howard Schnellenberger because he won with Bernie, then Jimmy Johnson won, then Dennis Erickson won, Larry Coker won. But long before there was a Bernie Kosar or a Michael Irvin, there was a Chuck Foreman. You may remember him from the Minnesota Vikings. And there was an Otis Anderson. Your days in Coral Gables, are they still special to you?
Absolutely. It's my birthplace. It's where I half my way to the NFL. And it was such a great school at the time. We had just started to win again, and we had probably one of the greatest coaches to ever coach at Miami who came from the pros, Lou Saban.
Yes, Lou Saban, that's right. Then you go to St. Louis, and you were just impossible to tackle. Over 1,600 yards your rookie season, Otis, and 8 years in St. Louis. Now, when I was growing up, and the Cardinals were still in St. Louis, and they were in the NFC East with the Giants and the Cowboys, and had that great quarterback in Jim Hart. Then Neil Lomax came along, and guys like you and Terry Metcalf and Roy Green. I mean, you had 8 years in St. Louis. 5 of those were really amazing seasons. This young generation doesn't remember those Cardinal teams, but you never won it. But, boy, you had some really, really good teams.
We did. We had some great guys on our team. As you mentioned, Jim Hart, Mel Gray, Roy Green was probably one of the up-and-coming two-way players before Deion, before Bo Jackson. Roy Green was that guy. He played pretty much every position for us, and one of the best wide receivers that later became wide receiver after transitioning over from defensive back. So we played the tough NFC East, and as you said, you had Washington, Philly, the Cowboys, and then you had us. So you couldn't get no tougher division than that.
No. And then you go to the Giants in '86, I guess more of like an insurance type of guy, right? Because the Giants, really Rodney Hampton was going to be their guy. I mean, Joe Morris was still there then, but moving forward, it was going to be Hampton after Joe Morris. And Hampton gets hurt in '89, and you play a lot of football for the Giants. You get over 1,000 yards and go on to win the Super Bowl. But were you happy? I don't know the whole story, Otis. Were you happy to go to the Giants in '86 from St. Louis?
Well, I think whenever you get traded, your feelings are hurt because that means that the team that you previously played for don't want you anymore or don't think you are any value. So to have the Giants in the same division, to go there, which has never been heard of and never been dealt with when you deal with what they call a franchise player to an organization who you competed with consistently,
right?
It was shocking. So I was a little drawn back, but overall, it worked out very well for me.
Yeah, I would say so, OJ. And then you get there, you got Parcells, who, and I love Bill. I talk to Bill still, and I'm very close, Otis, as you know, with Phil and Lawrence. But, I mean, he was a prick. He was impossible. He got better as he went along. He became more of a player's coach. But I got to think in '86, when you first get there, he had to be a little tough, no, Bill Parcells?
Well, you know what? They welcomed me with open arms. Was he tough? He had his rules, and then there was the LT rule that was different than anybody else's rules. Which you quickly learned that LT had his own set of rules, and LT does what LT does, and you cannot do what LT does. You know what I mean? Just quickly, you learned that. So, but he made it clear that what he wanted from me and what I needed to do.
Hey, Otis, if I would have said to you back then in '86, Parcells had already won a Super Bowl. That was it. That year, I should say. In fact, you're the only Giant, I think. You got there in '86. They won the Super Bowl that year. I think you're the only Giant before this Eli group to win 2 Super Bowls. But if I would have told you that you'd have a guy on the staff, not Parcells, who many think is the greatest coach in the history of the game, and that was the defensive coordinator at the time, Bill Belichick. 30 years later, would you say I was nuts?
Yeah, I would say you were more than nuts. I would say you were freaking out of your mind. You need to be buried next to Jimmy Hoffa, But, Bill and I, Belichick, I used to run the defensive plays, and I used to always run plays according to what I saw as a running back, and he used to get upset because I would do things that I thought that a running back would do, and he would say, no, stick to the card. And he would yell at Ray Handley, can you get O.J. to run the ball the way I said? I'm running the way a running back would see things. He said, you know what? You probably never win another Super Bowl. He said, you probably never win a Super Bowl. And I said, you probably never be a head coach.
Oh, that's great. Then you won 2 and he's won 1,000. So what was it like that '86? The Giants had a really good team. You didn't get there. You were 85. You were still in St. Louis, but they had a really good team. But they had that disaster in Chicago, and Sean Landeta missed a punt, and the Bears were really good. But now you go to Pasadena. You're taking on John Elway and the Denver Broncos. Man, what a day for Sims, huh? McConkey, Bavaro. It didn't matter where he threw the ball. Joe Morris running the football. What was that like in '86 when the Giants win their first Super Bowl?
It was watching a well-oiled machine just do what they do. If you just didn't get in the way, and that was my whole point was don't get in the way, don't be a distraction, don't be a reason why they don't win the game, and that's all I tried to do. I remember I got in early, had one carry for 1 yard, and then the next time I got in, I was able to score a touchdown. So I just tried to get out the way because, man, you talking about a good team, ready to win, that's what they were.
You may be the only Giant ever, now that you said that, OJ, to actually score a touchdown in 2 Super Bowls for the Giants. Isn't that right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but
I am.
Yeah.
So you could wear that proudly as if you don't have enough to brag about. Now the only freaking Giant ever. You scored in '86 and 1990. Hampton gets hurt. You become the go-to guy. So everybody, look, I think you'd agree, Otis, football is really the only sport not basketball, not baseball, not hockey, where you can scheme to a win. I think coaching in football is the most important. There's no way anyone can convince anybody that the Bills weren't 10 times more talented than you guys were that day. They just were. Hall of Famers everywhere. Kelly, Reed, Thurman, Bruce. But the idea of keeping the ball away from them by giving you the football, this was just an unbelievable scheme by Bill Parcells and a great job by you, yes?
Well, I can't take all the credit, neither can Bill, but the late Ron Earhart, he decided with Bill that the best way to beat an offense as potent as the Bill was to keep them off the field. So they came to me the night before and they said, how do you feel? I said, I feel pretty good. He said, okay, this is what we want to do. We want to pound them. 2 yards, 3 yards, 5 yards, 10 yards, make it in the game. He said, are you ready for this? You may carry 25, 30 times. Can you do it? I said, Bill, I've been waiting on this. I had made a prediction coming out of the University of Miami in 79, my rookie season. I said if I played in the Super Bowl and was in the state of Florida and I was a feature running back, I'll win MVP. And
wow.
Lord behold.
Wow. Did you really do that, or you just made it sound good afterwards?
No, I made that call. You can ask anybody.
No, I believe you. No, I know you, Otis. Come on. Now, that is awesome. Now, are you one of the players, and I know you guys are scared to admit this in public. Look, Phil Simms is one of my best friends. He was on this show 2 weeks ago. And I think Phil is probably a better quarterback than Eli. In Eli's prime when he was winning Super Bowls for the Giants. I think Phil's the best Giant quarterback ever. But I'm not sure Phil can beat the Bills that day. Hostetler was the right guy. He was mobile. That Bruce Smith, that safety may have been a touchdown if 11 was in the game. Are you one of the Giants that will admit that you may not win that game if Simms is the quarterback?
It's hard to say because Phil gave us 11 wins before he got hurt.
Oh, he was great.
Even though we did lose the Buffalo game at Giants Stadium early that year. So I don't know. It's hard, apples and oranges, man. It's whatever case you have for, that's what you go with. But I know that day, Hostetler was the best we had. We went with him, and him being on the field did make a difference, and that's why we won it. If we played Buffalo 100 times, we probably beat him that one time.
That's right. And the biggest play of the game, I think, OJ, besides you were really fantastic, and we all love you forever, was the Mark Ingram play. I mean, the dancing on that third down play, and he's in a federal prison now. I mean, any of you guys ever talk to Ingram? How weird is that?
Well, I take that back. Ingram is not in federal prison anymore. He's out. He's been
he is out. Okay.
Over 3, maybe 4 years. He was at one of the Giant games when his son came up, I guess about a year and a half ago. We had a chance to talk, laugh a little bit. Every once in a while, we reach out to each other. Baker and Odessa talks to Ingram quite a bit, and every once in a while, I give him a call. But Ingram's doing well. Good.
Odessa Turner. Talking to the great O.J. Anderson, so many great years, the Miami Hurricanes, the St. Louis Cardinals, and then a hero with our Giants winning 2 Super Bowls. And you stayed here, right, O.J.? You never left. I mean, that's what I like about guys like Phil Simms. He's a Kentucky guy, but now he's Mr. Franklin Lakes. I like guys that win a championship, like Dan Marino. He'll never leave Weston. You know what I mean? But Derek Jeter, he went to Tampa. Anderson, you'll never leave this city, right? Never.
No, man. This is where all my contacts are. This is where my businesses that I'm involved with is here. And as long as I don't do nothing stupid, people will love me and always support me. That's all I got to do is just do the right thing.
You will not do anything stupid. In fact, I remember, oh, my God. We're both getting old, Otis. Had to be like 15 years ago. And it was that old sports bar, Midtown Manhattan, fancy place. It's out of business now. And they had all the 1,000-yard running backs for the Giants, like you, Joe Morris. Heck, I think even Gary Brown had one 1,000-yard season. Yeah, is that right, OJ?
Yeah. And you know what about it? A guy named Ken Thimble put together that whole program. And one thing that people need to understand is that it was, I think, 5 or 6 of us that signed the helmet. And one of the names that people need to remember that set the path for all of us was Ron Johnson.
Yeah.
A guy who we truly missed, who passed away recently. But he's a name on a helmet that will never be duplicated. And if people had that helmet, they got them a special, special helmet.
You are right.
Which a lady last night when I was out to dinner mentioned that to me, that they were at that running back and they have the helmet.
he was a terrific running back, Ron Johnson. Back there, even Doug Kotar, never a 1,000-yard back. He dies as a very young man from cancer, but he was fun. I'll tell you, it really helped the Giants in the early 80s before you got there was Rob Carpenter, guy who played in Houston, and he came along, played alongside Scott Bruner and Ron Earhart, and had the Giants in that playoff game when Beasley Reese against the Eagles, and that kind of set the way for guys like Joe Morris and Rodney Hampton and Montgomery and you and that whole crew. So tell me this on the way out, OJ, and it's always great to catch up with you. The Giants have now had 6 losing seasons in their last 7 years. The question is, should Eli Manning come back? I'm not going to ask you that because he's one of your boys. It's a big fraternity. But watching the Giants the last 7 or 8 years, how depressing is that?
Well, you know what? I think that everybody's getting better in the league. And, the traditional way of winning games and traditional way of doing things, I think it's kind of changing a little bit. If you look at what teams are looking at, they're looking at these hot offensive coordinators around the league and from colleges who have got these bright ideas and doing things a little different. I think, Coach Pat is going to be doing a great job for it. He's one of those young minds. And I think we're starting to move in the right direction. If you look at what we've done recently in the draft with Gilliman and bringing in guys like Barkley, we already have Odell and we have Shepard. So we have Ingram, we have Wayne Gilman. So we have guys that are starting to impact the youth movement on the team. And you need a leader like Eli. I don't think you should throw him under the bus. I don't think you get rid of Eli yet, because if you do, who are you going to bring there? You saying starting over. You saying you last 7 years with losing season. Well, you want to go 8-9. You want to get rid of Eli. You probably be 8. Losing season.
Right.
But I think keeping him around and finding somebody you can bring along, like just the way we did it. Joe Morris helped me bring along Rodney Hampton. Rodney Hampton brought along Tiki Barber. And the list goes on. So there are ways in doing it, and I think the way that the Giants are approaching it, with great leadership and great ownership, they're going to do the right thing. They're going to get the right people in for us. They're going to do the right thing.
Tiki Barber brought along Brandon Jacobs and Ahmad Bradshaw. So are you going to be in Atlanta as a Super Bowl MVP? Do you go to the game every single year?
I mean, you know what? You've been there a lot of times early on in my career. I was always there.
Yeah.
And, when you're not in it, it's just not a lot of fun. Just to hang out and go to parties and,
What are you talking about? You're not represented by somebody that can get you $20,000 to play golf for a day?
I tell you what you do. You find that guy. You give my number. You tell him I'm available.
All right. You want that guy? I'll tell you what. He lives in Miami. His number was 56. You played alongside him. He's still getting 20, 30, 40, 50,000. You're the MVP. Come on. Come on.
You know what? Like I said, that's Lawrence, and then there's everybody else.
Hey, man, you're great. I've enjoyed our friendship over the last couple of decades. Look forward to seeing you soon. And enjoy the game in 3 weeks, because you are one of the all-time greats. Thank you, Otis.
Well, listen, I appreciate the call. I just hope the people in that during Hall of Fame get their butt together and realize that a man like me deserves to be sitting in there Sunday.
Oh, there's no doubt. Are you kidding me? 6,000 or 7,000-yard seasons, Super Bowl MVP, only Giant to score a touchdown in 2 different games, over 1,600 yards as a rookie, great running campaign in college in Miami. What else do you got to do? What the F else do you got to do?
Listen, I got 10,000 yards. I got 80-some touchdowns. If you look in that Hall of Fame, you see how many people in there that don't have that above me. People who have that above me, I respect that. I know people who below me, think about it for a minute. The numbers don't lie.
All right. I'm starting the campaign today, okay? You got Sid Rosenberg behind you. That means a lot, I think. I don't know.
There we go.
All right, Otis. Take care, pal.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
All right. The great O.J. Anderson. We'll take a short break. When we get back, it's time to make some money, folks, right? 2 big games today. Now about 2.5 hours away. Kickoff in Foxborough. Chargers and Patriots. And then after that, of course, in Orleans, Eagles and Saints. Nobody does it better than Danny Biancolo. He's on a 16-week winning streak. DBWins.com. Danny B making picks right after these words.
77 WABC.
Countdown on 3. 1, 2, 3,
Sid Sports Sunday, driven by Ramsey Mazda. Each and every Sunday morning, 8 to 10.
Hey, go give it to you. Let's go get it.
77 WABC.
There he is.
This segment was sponsored by
DB Win. You know, you could just play that. You just heard from Danny Biancullo. Let's play that right now. Get that out of the way, Bruce.
This segment is sponsored by DBWins.com.
The best in the business. So good, in fact, they had to give him his own show, which is great. Saturday nights at 6 o'clock right here on 77 WABC. Inside the Numbers. And I hear time and time again, the favorite segment on this show, Sid Sports Sunday, is Danny Biancullo. Just a great guy and great at what he does. The website is dbwins.com. Good morning, Danny.
Good morning, Sidney.
I have to think, speaking to people in the business, being on Twitter all day long, that you took it up the ass with that Colts loss yesterday, yes? The Colts killed you, didn't they?
No, I got beat up. I had them wrapped around teases, straight up. It was just a horrible day. Early, I got beat up. Even when I got home, my kid beat me up. It's funny. I'm not kidding. We were wrestling around. I was talking about him on the show, you see. So he wants to be the tough guy. So he throws my shoulder out. I got beat up. Even your engineer yelled at me yesterday.
Well, listen, I know that all the sharps that I talked to, like all four underdogs this weekend, they liked the Colts in Dallas yesterday, neither covered. They liked the Chargers and the Eagles today. In fact, some of them are betting money lines. Colts on the money line, Chargers on the money line. So yesterday, that turns out to be a nightmare. Are they going to be right today, or do they want to reverse ship and maybe take a look at the home favorites?
Well, you know what? I wasn't alone yesterday, that's for sure. Everybody got, well, not everybody, but a lot of people got hurt with the Colts. Last weekend, we saw the underdogs cover. You know what I did with this early
You keep
game?
mentioning the Colts. What about Dallas? They're getting 7.5. They lost by 8.
I got them in a teaser, though. I did bail myself out last night on the show, Dallas to the over with a 7-point teaser. You know, they ran all over them. But you got to give credit where it's due. The Rams played well. Dallas didn't. It is what it is. You know, today what I did, I got my cousin, he's on the West Coast, and I was able to get the Patriots at -3 out there, you see, because they're betting the Chargers out there. If you shop around, you can find those numbers. So I went with the Patriots -3 on the West Coast. You're not going to find that number here. You'll see 4, 3.5, 4 maybe. But you can get creative with this game. So I got the Patriots on the West Coast with a local guy at -3, good number. You can do this. You can take the Patriots +3 in the teaser to over 40. You can take the Chargers +11 to over 40. You know, for me, football's over, Sid. We're down to a handful of games. Oh, by the way, great segment with Mr. Anderson. Loved it.
Thank you.
Very good segment.
Thank you.
So you got to be creative with a game like this. So you can play this a lot of ways. You're not going to get -3 unless you're on the West Coast, maybe.
No,
so I have the Patriots -3, but I also teased them +3 in a 7-pointer. You know, right here they're 4, so you grab them at +3 to over 40. And if you really want to have a little fun, you can take the Chargers to +11 to over 40.
I like the Chargers +11 much more than the Pats +4. I think this game comes down to a field goal late, and I don't want to have the Patriots at -4. Chargers are the best all-around team. Now, again, it's in Foxborough, and Brady is 7-0 against Rivers. But like I told you last week, Chargers-Ravens, they were the better team. They're the better team today. Now, the Saints are the better team this afternoon, Danny Biancullo, dbwins.com. But, I mean, you got to be almost crazy to bet against Nick Foles. Now, this guy's, it's unbelievable.
Well, yeah, you know, you can take the Eagles up to 15 and really secure that to over 45. It's a tough number, -8. You know, the Eagles got embarrassed the last time they were down in New Orleans.
That was Wentz, though, right, Danny? That was Wentz, not Foles.
Yeah, that was Wentz, correct. Foles has got this, I don't know, guardian angel over his head. I don't know what he's got, but I think if you take the Eagles to 15 to over 45, that should cash in pretty good. These games are tough. I'm turning my focus to basketball right now, Sid. You know, there's so many more options, and I have this 7-day giveaway. Anybody that wants to contact me, visit the site, dbwins.com. I'll introduce you to basketball starting tomorrow, a 7-day trial membership. Also, I'll throw in the championship games next week.
You know, it's funny, and that's where the guys are going now. There's only 4 games of the NFL. So the real gamblers, the guys that will pay you and play, they are betting all day and all night, college basketball and NBA. So you're right, football, it's over. It's done. You got 4. What are you going to do? You got 2 games today. You got like 20 basketball games. You got one here right downstairs at the Garden in 2 hours. The Knicks, the lowly Knicks, going to host the 76ers. And I think there'll be as many people that want to pick on that or the late college and NBA games once the NFL is over. Guys are down who knows what. They're going to try to save their ass with the Sacramento Kings.
Well, you know what? Again, most people, they play their football and then they throw in a towel to, like, March Madness. They get a little fever. And then maybe they'll play the playoffs a little bit. But there's so much value in basketball, baseball. It's day to day. So the average fan, they don't have time to put in the research. But football, you got all week to prepare. They already know who they like today. They're all biased. They love their Chargers. They love their Patriots. Who was a big Patriot fan in there? Was it Crash? That's a big...
by the way, who the hell says Patriots? They're the Patriots.
Are you mocking me, sir?
Yes. What kind of ridiculous Patriots?
When I was waiting for you, and you said be patient, like Axl Rose here, I was watching... Ted Cruz really does look like Al Lewis.
Yes, he does.
I was watching that Chuck Todd show, waiting for you.
My boy on Meet the Press, yes.
Yeah, I don't watch that stuff, but he really does look like Grandpa.
He does. Well, you watch that stuff now because you are, and admittedly, a huge Bernie and Sid in the Morning fan. You guys...
I definitely am. The show is fantastic.
It is a great show. And by the way, we've got Chuck Todd on every Friday morning live.
I'm a fan. I like Chuck Todd. I just don't get into the political stuff. That's not my forte. But I did get a chance to meet Bernie finally.
Yes.
In the elevator. I walked up to him. He didn't know who I was, but he caught on with the voice. And you know who else spent some time with me? Curtis.
Yeah.
I didn't know how sports savvy he really is.
We got to play that. We have Curtis's on the way out here so quickly, and he loves you, and he actually spent a bunch of time on his Friday show with Juliet, Danny B, pumping you up. So again, for the games today, you like either side with the over in the early game, the Eagles with the over in the late game, NBA packages, college basketball packages available starting tomorrow at dbwins.com. Give me the phone number and the website one more time. We'll play Curtis, and then we'll talk to you, Danny, on Saturday night.
Yeah, fantastic. The number is 1-800-308-9003. And, of course, the website, easy to remember, dbwins.com. And, again, Sid, thanks for everything. I appreciate all the love, the support. You guys have been fantastic to me. I'm thinking about changing the show to Happy Hour with Mr. and Mrs. B.
I like that. Your beautiful wife, Jamie, and you do drink a lot, so.
No, I don't.
You go to that bar in Hoboken and, get free. You say, I'm Danny B, you get free shots.
No, I'm not right. I have a drink or two during the week, but I don't get crazy.
I'm kidding.
I'm a functioning drunk.
No, you actually don't. You're very mild. You're not obsessive compulsive or anything. We love you. We got to run. Danny B, thank you, buddy. All right, dbwins.com. And here it is. He does this every week for us.
Was sponsored by dbwins.com. Opinions expressed are solely those of the host at dbwins.com and do not necessarily reflect those of WABC or QVC Media.
Curtis Sliwa.
This is Curtis Sliwa's Super Sports Spectacular on Sid Sports Sunday, powered by Ramsey Mazda.
I read all week long. I'm listening to Bernard McGurk and Sid Rosenberg in the morning. And here's Sid piping in. Adam Gase. What is this, Gase from South Beach? No, Adam Gase, the loser coach of the Dolphins. Oh, you like fish? Why don't you have some bacala, Sid Rosenberg? Because Adam Gase is a loser. But Peyton Manning gave his seal of approval. What's wrong with you, Sid? You couldn't be more hopelessly wrong on this. And please, I know a lot of heavy hitters listen to Sid Rosenberg on sports. Millionaires, billionaires. Stop the pain and suffering of Nick and Ranger fans. This Dullen, Jimmy Dullen says, I'll sell the Knicks for $5 billion. Please stop the triage. Buy the Knicks, buy the Rangers, and send Jimmy Dolan into retirement in Boca Raton, the sixth borough of the city of New York now.
Great job, Curtis. I want to thank Isaiah. Bruce Clayton does a terrific job running the board, and Mike Gunzelman is the best executive producer in the business. Enjoy Chargers, Patriots, and Saints and Eagles next week. Championship weekend in the NFL, and we'll be here at 9 o'clock next Sunday. Peace!
WABC, New York.